Chapter 2. Skeletons in the Attic. Sonava, the Argols. I mulled it over before I went to sleep that night. It was obvious that I was meant to stumble into that frightening scene with Natalie, if only to remember those words, but why? I'd seen the image of the yellow-armored man before too, the guy with the cyan eyes. I couldn't be certain, but I thought the image came from a little red book the dad read once. I hadn't seen the book before or since, but I remember that striking figure being on the cover. I fell asleep with both images swimming in my mind's eye. We kept Dad's stuff in a box in the attic. Our house was modest. It had a long hallway which connected the front door to the kitchen and dining room out the back. Mum slept up the front, and my sister, Simone, was with me in our own hallway. Halfway along the hall, across from the TV area, hung a string from the roof. If you pulled on it, the attic ladder would come crashing down to the floor. There were dents in the floorboards from where it kept landing. That red book would be up there. It felt almost silly to chase these answers, especially this way. I had not been immune to the crazy and spectacular in life. There had been many occasions where I didn't believe my own eyes. So why did I believe last night so intently? Was it because Natalie was as scared as I was, or because I felt that it had to have been genuine? And why did I feel that I needed to know those words? What I did know was that in that bizarre night, a stream of intense gut feelings and compulsions led me to meet a girl with whom I would witness something otherworldly. It wasn't the weirdest thing I'd ever seen, but I still felt that I had to know more about it. I couldn't leave those compulsions unchecked. Something was at work here, demanding my attention. Still, Natalie and I didn't talk at all after the events we witnessed in the night before. The whole journey home, we ticked our brains over just to keep our hearts pumping. I said goodnight on her doorstep, and she thanked me for walking her. We exchanged the pleasantries of, "It was wonderful to meet you," and went on our own ways. I passed the study on the way to the attic. Simone, my elder sister by 2 years, sat hunched in the dark room over a bright screen. Her furious fingers typed away, tongue hanging out the side of her mouth, reveling in her grin. I can only assume she was making another blog post. Ahead of the times, that was Simone. We were one of those houses with an internet connection in 1998, and she damn well made sure to use each byte of bandwidth, posting her opinion on the far left image board, spurting paranormal madness on her connected blog site. Feminism, demon, ghosts, those were strangely disconnected points of expertise, plastered on an image board which covered topics from functional Marxism, social activism, all the way down to the paranormal and spiritual. "Updating your loyal followers?" I asked as I passed. "I'm onto something today, James," she grinned. "Evidence on the scale that we've before seen." "I'd like to see it then," I said, and without a hint of sarcasm to the tone. Simone and I had shared childhood experiences which formed a contract between us, an infinite clause of belief. Never would we doubt each other's outlandish crazy claims. It was well deserved too. I'd never mock her for her beliefs. I did love her after all. "Oh, you'll see it, right after the world does," she yelled as I walked off. "They'll all believe us, James." I got under the attic's trapdoor and pulled its release string. It took a forceful tug to undo the latch, but once it released, I had to jump clear. The sliding ladder, probably the most lubricated and well-engineered in the world, careened down its rails like a runaway train and crashed into the indents in the floorboards. It shook the house, summoning the family dog, Errol, right away. He circled around the base of the ladder as I climbed it, watching curiously. The air in the attic was thick and unsettled. A shroud of darkness hung in the room, separate to the shadows which leaped between the boxes in your peripherals. Not even the daylight from the singular circle window could cut into the haze. The sun's rays were strangled once they passed the glass and thrown to the floor like dead insects. Dust hung in the room like a treacherous fog, dancing unpredictably and settling in a thick coating over everything. I crawled past the many boxes to the back wall, where there was a large wooden chest. As I made my way towards it, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. There were eyes in every particle of air and every shadow all focused on me. It was the same feeling which struck me each time I came here for Dad's stuff. It didn't surprise me anymore, but I still found it creepy. I pressed the button on the large wooden chest's latch. The lid popped up pneumatically, just enough to get your fingers under the crack. I slowly swung it open the rest of the way, revealing the items I'd sorted through many times. On the top of the pile was his white golf visor, which he wore religiously every Sunday. Under that was Dad's wedding suit, and some other clothes which he would lounge around the house in. In retrospect, it's kind of weird to preserve his lazing around clothes, but looking at them always jogged my memory of him. It was comforting. I could see the way that he would shuffle onto the back deck, wine glass in hand, and take his seat about the round table. Errol would circle under the chair, trying to get him to throw the ball. John Gray wasn't a tall man or an imposing one, but his strength radiated. He had a presence of command that extended as far as his love. The last of the old bulls, he'd call himself, patting his chest with a smart grin and a meaty palm. Below his clothes in the chest was a layer of old family videos and photo albums. Usually when I came up here to reminisce, I would grab out the tape converter and play them all through the TV, then flip through the photo albums. But today I was looking for information, not sentiments. I didn't feel like forcing myself through the memories. To the right of the videos and albums were his trophies. There were a lot of these, and I knew them all. John Gray, best and fairest for the league, 1977. Best and fairest St. Leonard's, 1976. Nationals under 14, 100-metre freestyle, 2nd place. And the list went on. I always wished that I could have lived up to that glory of his. I spent my childhood trying to be everything that he was as a sportsman, but always failing at that. I couldn't run as far, or swim nearly as fast, or even throw a ball. I gave up and just settled for doing my own things like music and drawing. I'd never know if he was proud of the decisions I made, though. Finally, I got to his books. There were a few of his mother's cookbooks here, which I always found odd. Why weren't they in the kitchen being useful? I loved Bubba's cooking, but now she and Detta had moved back to Macedonia, and, well, someone could be making this nice food. There were many autobiographies in the chest as well, each of which he had read over and over many times. Amongst autobiographies, there were some buddy cop thrillers, a few books bought for me, but only because he wanted them for himself, and a few sports almanacs. The little red book would have my answers, but it was eluding me. It wasn't anywhere in the stack. I grumbled and started to dive deeper into the chest. Reminiscing? A voice broke the silence behind me. I seized up and almost fell over myself. Simone was standing on the steps of the ladder, her head poking into the attic. Simone wore a sweet, polite smile now, in contrast to her often dreary, offended demeanour. Clearly her work on the internet had proved successful. It didn't take a lot to stoke Simone's passions, no more than a casual misstep of words. Yeah, I regained myself a bit of reminiscing. I turned my attention back to shifting through the test. I used to come up here a lot, she noted, wrenching herself up to sit on top of the entrance. I still do, actually. Looking for what? I asked, not concentrating on the conversation. Memories, she said blankly. Isn't it weird how you can construct a person in your head, run them through scenarios and memories, and know how they would have acted down to the wriggle of their toes? She asked. Yeah, I mumbled, having processed nothing. Well, I find that comforting. Like, if I'm still thinking about him, if he's still reacting to situations and making actions in my head, is he really dead? Huh? I looked up intrigued. What do you mean? Well, the person's just a consciousness, which is just a mind reacting to situations, right? So if I can simulate that in my head, has he really died? I reckon he's only gone and the last person stops thinking about him. There was a silence between us. Those were lovely words, but I wasn't sure what I really felt about them, and it certainly wasn't what I came here looking for. I still think about him, I guess. I smiled at Simone. So I guess he's not gone yet, right? What are you looking for? She asked me after a brief pause. One of his books, or, I don't know, it doesn't have to be a book I'm thinking of. I trailed off, getting deep into the chest again. I know Dad had a lot to do with the Argols, but what about Seneva? I know I heard him say that word. I looked up to her as I explained, and Simone's eyes lit up. What makes you ask about the Seneva? She quizzed, leaning closer. Did you see one? See one? I don't even know what it means, I coughed. I heard an Argol mention the word. A lie. It was the other figure with the cyan eyes that mentioned Seneva. But it was easier to say this than to tell the whole story. Has this got to do with the stuff that you spend all day talking about? Has it got to do with my blog? She scoffed, mocking me. James, do you even know what I write about? Yes, I rolled my eyes. Women's rights and ghosts. Where does Seneva fit into that? She eyed me blankly, offended. James, how long has it been since you read my blog? Only read it once, okay? I squirmed, and Simone huffed, shaking her head. How am I meant to educate the masses if they don't even bloody read? She sighed to herself, then continued. Look, if you're in trouble with the Argols or seeing Seneva, I'd go to the police. It's not something you want to be investigating. What? Why not? I asked. Come on, you can't just say that. I crawled over to the attic entrance, pleading with her. It's dangerous, she stood her ground. But not too dangerous for you, I asked. I might be younger, but I've got about 1.15 kilos on you. I can handle it. Her lips were pursed, but her face was conflicted, pleading with my eyes until she finally cracked. Fine. Wait here a minute, she huffed, slouching back onto the attic ladder and running off downstairs. As soon as she left me alone, I felt the room playing its tricks on me again. The shadows were thick. They condensed on me, squeezing out my air. I held my breath right up until Simone's blonde mop appeared under me, a little red book in her hand. Hey, I exclaimed. That's what I've been looking for. This? She quizzed, climbing the ladder. She seemed perplexed that I'd even thought of it as she handed the book to me. It was a small novel with a red hard cover painted in a fanciful illustration. It had a figure on the front of it, painted in glistening gold armor. The shape resembled the thing I'd seen last night, at least from my memory of them, only this picture had purple eyes instead of cyan, and golden armor to replace the yellow. "I think I saw this guy last night," I said, pointing to the book. "Impossible," Simone said. "That's the main character, and this is a fanciful, ill-reported biography from hundreds of years ago. They're well dead." "Well, somebody looked like this," I huffed. "Then they were Seneva," she said, her voice croaking. Simone was not fond of Seneva. I could sense the fire in her eyes, and I didn't dare to ask why. "What did you see last night, then?" Simone asked. "Well, somebody like this guy," I pointed again. "But men with suits and flamethrowers too. Those are the Argols, right?" Someone chuckled, head shaking. "Those aren't flamethrowers, James. They're Seneva weapons and Seneva abilities." "So Seneva carry around flamethrowers?" I quizzed. "Why should I worry about some flamethrower jerks? Just stand out of range." Simone sighed, raising a hand of frustration between us. "No, James, they don't carry around flamethrowers. Some of them are flamethrowers," she enunciated slowly. "And even still, there's more about them past their abilities which is dangerous, and makes them dangerous to pursue." "Explain." I crossed my arms, her lips pursed. "You know ghosts, right?" she started. "Sure. That's an odd place to start," I thought. "Well, actually, that was a stupid place to start," she cleared her throat. "Seneva are people with very special auras." "Very special auras." I said, "Bear with me." She squinted at me. I knew that this look meant that I had to sit down, shut up, and let her finish her rant, lest I violate our secret contract of belief. Okay. People with auras, I repeated. "So, how does that manifest into flamethrowers or something I should worry about?" "They used to have empires, back in the ancient times. Now they run gangs, and..." "How come nobody's heard of them?" I interjected. "Because they had to be sneaky, James. Why?" "Would you just let me talk?" She glared at me again with a dangerous stare. I shut up. "They have powers, James, like real magical powers, through their auras. They've been using them for centuries in secret societies to subvert governments and benefit themselves. They're dangerous, untrustworthy, and selfish oppressors." "So they've got magical political powers," I chuckled. "Simone, I think you've been listening too hard to those whack jobs on the internet. Secret societies I can get behind, but magical aura powers? That's ridiculous. How do you suppose that would work?" "Seneva worship black holes," she explained. "They say that they channel the energy from them through their souls." "Black hole magic?" I rubbed my chin. "Well, Simone, that still sounds stupid." "You know, James, you could be nicer," she said. "I mean, you saw it, didn't you? How could you explain the flame swords?" "Easy," I scoffed. "Gas-powered flame swords. Not everything needs a supernatural explanation." "You've been talking to too many die-hard experts," I rebutted. Simone rolled her eyes, stepping down the rung of the ladder. "Just read the book, wise guy." She patted the little red cover. "It's even translated into English for you. How nice of them." She continued her descent, with a very happy Errol barking and waggling by her feet. I turned to the book, inspecting the glossy red cover. Diaries of Kyros Orion Olom, it was titled, in a simple black lettering. I turned to the first page to find that the title page was glued to the rear of the hard cover. Looking closer, it appeared that leaking pen ink had stuck them together. Compelled to do so, I pried them apart with a satisfying rip. "Hey!" a distant Simone shouted, and trudged to the base of the ladder. "What are you doing to my book?" She stormed up the frail rungs of the ladder, the wood moaning under her. Frantically, I droned over the now separated page. It had a penned message. "Maggie, may this book help you on your journey of self-discovery. When you're ready, come and find me and I'll help you further. Your friend, Guvalik." Just as I'd comprehended the final word, the book was snatched from my hands. Simone gave me a dirty eye, then turned to inspect the damage. Her face immediately flipped. "Sickening," she frowned. "These oppressive bastards even claimed this book." "Who?" I asked. "Seneva, James," she said deadpan. "Guvalik is in this book. But he dies so early on, it can't be the same guy. That other name sounds Seneva too. Though that's only based on the others I've heard." "Right," I smiled, taking the book back. She reluctantly handed it to me. "And where'd you say you got this book?" I asked. "I thought it was Dad's." "It was Dad's, but he gave it to me," she smiled, taking some odd pride in the fact. "I didn't say, though. We got it from Mr. Finnick's garage sale, back before he went hermit." "It's quite interesting," I nodded. Mr. Finnick was somewhat of a neighbourhood celebrity, living at the butt of the street leading to the train station. He was the friendly old man whom everybody knew. He volunteered at school events and even did electrical work and gardening for those who asked. Everything he did with a smile, right up until he no longer came out. Dad was particularly fond of the man, hiring him for some odd jobs. "If you're going to check anything out, be careful," Simone said. "I feel bad enough that I told you anything. I mean, I post things about the Seneva and the supernatural online when there's anonymity. In real life, though, you're exposing yourself. If you try and uncover them, they might kill you. They don't care about equality or rights." "I'll be fine," I passed her off. "I'm not exposing anybody. I'm only taking a look," although secretly my enthusiasm to follow this had waned. I wondered what I'd really found myself pushed into here, and whether it was worth just defying my gut and its weird compulsions which were leading me into brave and stupid things. Talking to girls was some kind of extreme for me anyway. Now I was chasing the supernatural with their supposed secret societies. I eyed the book. It wanted me to read it. In a short few weeks, I was back at school. I tried to get on top of my homework, but procrastination had hit me hard as I started to read the diaries of Kyros Orion Olam. I barely got my English class reading done. That said, I'd never not do my homework. I was too scared of failure to let my grades slip. What would teachers think if I started slacking off? No, I couldn't have that. I was James Gray, teacher's pet and high achiever. I hadn't talked to Natalie at all, though, in the weeks since our first encounter. I didn't get her number, and I hardly remembered her address through the ordeal. I hoped that she was coping with it all, but I was excited to share my findings with her. We'd walked into a conspiracy theory, according to Simone. There were fallen empires here, one of which was Kyros Orion Olam's, and evil magic powers. Even with the diary, I had a hard time believing it all. It was a fine story, but nothing more. My fading memories of the swords had not yet convinced me otherwise, it seemed. That said, the strange coincidence of it all had me thinking. I felt compelled to talk to Natalie. Together, we had discovered a crazy scene, and then just as I was looking for information about it, it fell into my lap. I had the diary with me as I got onto the train to school. I figured that trains and buses were good places to read a book. Natalie appeared on the platform one stop after mine. Her face lit up when she saw me through the carriage window. She rushed past the morning commuters, over to where I was seated, and plonked herself down opposite me. "Hey," I smiled. "Lovely to finally see you again." Natalie fumbled to scatter her bags on the floor. She had a backpack, a laptop bag, a sports bag, all full to the point of breaking. How much stuff could one person need on a single day? "Hey," she replied, tearing open her school bag. The inside of it was like a filing cabinet, color-coded and perfectly placed. She pulled out a white book from the purple area, thick like a textbook, and handed it to me. The front cover had a symbol on it that I'd never seen before. It was a white circle encompassed by black radial flames. It resembled the shape of a Christian cross, but with 8 arms instead of 4. "This describes what we were looking at the other night," she said, skipping all pretense of "how were your weeks off?" I smiled giddy. "They're Seneva, I know," I said. "My sister is a self-proclaimed expert. She runs a paranormal blog and frequents a paranormal political activist image board." "Gee, that's a mix," Natalie commented. Well, anyway, I found this in my Yamit Says library. I had to sneak in there to get it, and it's half written in another language, but it explains enough. Go to page 46, she instructed. I flipped through the book to get to the right page. It was old, with yellowing, cracking pages and littered in diagrams. On page 46, one of these diagrams caught my eye. It was an image of a 3-ringed bullet of energy, just like the one that had slapped the man in the alleyway. "Quatra," Natalie explained, noticing my gaze. "We saw it in the alleyway. The book says it's the energy that they take from black holes." Jeez, I flipped on further. Well, it turns out my sister isn't totally crazy. I mean, she was talking about black hole energy, but I didn't really believe her. But a book with a bolt that we saw? "I know," Natalie said. "I didn't believe it either until I saw that diagram. There's some crazy stuff in this text." "Yeah, you might be right," I said. "And if this is some weird conspiracy, somebody's gone to great lengths to make an old book and spread around very convenient clues." I inspected the book further, flipping to the front. The publishing date was from the 10th of July, 1951. From the feel of the tome, I believed that too. "Why'd you have to sneak into your grandma's library anyway?" "Huh?" Nellie responded, almost forgetting that she'd said it herself. She doesn't like me reading her books. Not that I can read much of this one anyway. Half of it's in another language." I hummed, flipping through the book again. Surely enough, another language emerged halfway through and slowly took over the text. The writing wasn't in any recognizable letters. They were made of simpler shapes with sharper lines and bigger curves. In the other language section, there was a large annotated diagram. It was the outline of a human body filled with a web of veins streaming from the neck down to the arms and legs. That's creepy looking. I handed the book back to her. Yeah, I don't know what it's meant to be, but it sure is interesting, she smiled. I did my own research too, and I came up with this, I said, digging through my bag. It was a mess, stuffed with sports clothes, already breaking books, and a half-opened pencil case. Natalie squirmed in her seat and edged away from the disordered mess as I pulled out a little red book. I handed it to her. Doesn't that look like the guy? I said, pointing to the cover. Yeah, you're right, she said. Although this guy's gold, not yellow, and the eyes are the wrong colour. Well, sure, but it's remarkably similar, I repeated. Definitely, Natalie agreed. Doesn't look as helpful as your book, though, and the stories in it could be fictitious, but it's got something even better than information. It's got a lead. Really? Natalie's eyes lit up. She leaned in over me. Look at the first page, I instructed. She opened it up to the cursive message. It's from one Seneva to another. I know my sister and dad bought the book, so maybe we could trace it back to this Kuvalik guy. Natalie smiled excitedly. Her blue-green eyes glowed. She handed me back the book. So we're a team then? We're going to follow this up? Sure, I responded. It was so easy to say yes in the moment, but my mind skipped back to Simone's warnings and to the real danger we'd seen in that alleyway. This could be dangerous, I noted. My sister told me that these guys are in government-controlling secret societies. Natalie stared at me quizzically. Somehow that sounds stupider to me than the black hole magic, she noted. Fair enough, I laughed, although I didn't appreciate the dismissal. Look, James, I believe everything happens for a reason. We've been thinking about this all week. I know maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but we didn't stumble across all this for nothing. We're meant to look this up. You're right, I followed immediately. This wasn't for nothing. I didn't want to mention to her the compulsion that I had to talk to her. I was scared that she'd take it as my romantic interest in her, and I honestly didn't feel that way. I didn't want to start the friendship off on a sour note, and I didn't want to seem crazy either. Not that our current proposition wasn't crazy enough. I'd made my decision, and with it, I felt a familiar tingle at the base of my neck. Comforting, powerful warmth spread all over my body. Let's do this, I said. Let's see where the universe leads us.